Hi, I'm Boris Blade. I'm the host of Strange But Harmless. Well, last week you got to hear part one of Tickets. Let's pick up where we left off. After work one day, I stopped by the campus to scope things out. I parked on the street and walked to the nearest student-looking person I saw. I asked where the student center was. Luckily, she said I was only a couple of blocks from there. Having listened intently to her directions, I headed back to my car. Well, her directions would have been great as the crow flies, but due to so many one-way streets being around the campus, I found them to be quite lacking. At some point, I just stopped next to a busy sidewalk, rolled down my window, and said loudly, "Excuse me." A couple of girls and one guy stopped and looked. I motioned for the guy to come closer, then asked where the student center was. Well, I was closer than I thought. He gave me directions and instructions on how to avoid the one-way street on my way. Within minutes, I was there. At least I could see the building that both of them had described. Then it took me 10 minutes to find a place where I could park without risking a ticket for not having a parking pass. I then had to walk for 5 minutes to get back to the student center. I walked in, and before I could ask anyone, I spotted a counter with the very familiar Ticketmaster sign. I went to the counter and was waiting until the girl behind it was finished on the phone. You could tell by her tone and body language it was a personal call. I was getting irritated by this time and made a frustration noise, loudly. She told her friend, or whatever, to hold on a minute. She turned to me and said, "What do you need?" Being in a mood now, and not a good one either, and being an incurable smartass, I said, "A hot chicken, $1,000,000. Expecting to get a rise out of her, I was surprised when she said, "I'm not available, besides I'm broke." I said, "That's all right, you're not my type." I then went on to ask her about the ticket line policy. She gave me short, curt answers, glancing at her phone occasionally. I had asked my needed questions and a couple of more just for shits and giggles. As soon as I turned to leave, she grabbed her phone and I heard her say, "Damn," he hung up. I turned just in time to see the dirty look she gave me. I smiled big and waved goodbye, thinking another dumbass trying to be a smartass. That Friday, tickets went on sale. I got to the door around 4 p.m. I was first, thank God. As I mentioned later, I had to park 5 minutes away. I got weird looks as I walked across campus with a sleeping bag, a cooler, and a couple of plastic grocery bags in tow. The next few hours were spent people watching as students and faculty alike walked past, most ignoring me, some staring at me, and a couple of small groups even laughed at me without even trying to hide it. At one point, a guy, I could only assume was a professor by his clothes, came up and asked, "Why are you sitting here?" I told him I was waiting in line for tickets. He then told me the ticket office was just inside. I said, "Yes, I know, but my tickets don't go on sale until 10 a.m. tomorrow." He looked confused for a second, then responded with, "Are you planning on sitting here all night?" Well, I was tired of this dude, so I said, "No, I might lie down and try to sleep if people don't keep bothering me." Of course, he had no way of knowing he was the only person that so far had even spoke to me. His attitude changed as fast as the Ohio weather changes, and that's fast. He looked irritated as he headed into the building. A few minutes later, he walked out the door and passed me with a smirk on his face. Shortly after that, a man dressed in business casual came out and walked over to me. He asked in a voice that sounded strangely of frustration and amusement, "Are you here for sticks?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He said, "Listen, I've already had one complaint." I had to explain to a professor that there was no rule against camping out for tickets, to which he wanted to know why not. He kind of chuckled, I think it was a chuckle, then continued, "Because no one has ever done it here before." We both chuckled then, and I realized this dude was not going to be a problem if I was cool about things. So I asked him some pertinent questions just to show him I was not an idiot. I asked, "What time does the building open?" He said 7 a.m. I said, "What time would we, assuming there was other people in line, what time would we be let in?" He said at 7 a.m. he would take the first couple of dozen people in to get in line. He said he would line us going up the steps. I went on to ask, "Does security patrol this area all night?" He looked at me strangely and asked, "Are you planning on robbing us?" Chuckling as he said it. I probably responded with the last thing he expected from a large hippie-looking dude with a full beard. I said I'd feel safer if they did. He told me that they only patrolled until 10 p.m. when the student center closed. I was happy to hear that. I also asked, "Do your people start pulling tickets immediately in blocks of 20 to sell after the initial rush?" Remembering the J.C. Penney's fiasco, he looked at me as if I'd sprouted a third eye in my forehead and said, "Why would we do that?" I said, "I don't know. Ask the service desk manager at Rolling Acres Penny Store why he did it." I then said, "Except you can't, because they were TicketCon and are no longer in the ticket business." He said, "Actually, I will be coming out around 30 minutes prior to the sale. I'll write down the first 20 or so people's names, number of tickets they want, and if they're paying with cash, check, or charge. I'll have the girls start pulling them in those quantities as soon as the sale's officially open. Then the guy at the register can start ringing you all up without disturbing the ticket sales going on at the other line. Wow, this guy had his shit together. So I asked, would anyone screw with me for being here? He said, I doubt it unless you give him a reason to. I assured him he had nothing to worry about with me. It was not my first time camping out for tickets. Something behind me must have caught his attention because he quickly excused himself and went inside. As I watched, he hurried up the aforementioned steps. That night was uneventful. I stealthily drank my beer. I held off on the weed, at least until the courtyard emptied of students around 7 p.m. There were still stragglers, but I noticed that the foot traffic in and out of the student center had almost slowed to a stop. So I waited about another half hour. I blazed up. Right about that time I noticed heading straight for me was no one. Gotcha, didn't I? So I cautiously toked a number, keeping it cupped and at my side when not hitting it. All went well, and I smoked a couple more by the time 10 p.m. rolled around. Security hadn't strolled past even once. Around 4 a.m. I was awakened by a young couple just getting in line. Well, actually, I've been awake since before awoke was even a thing. We greeted each other cordially, and I rolled back over for more shut-eye. When I awoke again at around 6 a.m., there was a small crowd of around 30 people in line. I stood, yawned, and stretched. Someone farther down the line came up and asked me when I had gotten here. I told him around 8 o'clock. He turned and spoke loudly to an unseen person behind us in line and said, 8 o'clock! I told you he got here early. The young couple just smiled as I got his attention and said, 8 o'clock p.m. He stared for a moment, turned and said, real early, 8 o'clock p.m. I'd learned my lesson at the mall and lied. I heard all night and the word stupid from more than one voice. Bet he's sore, and a few dumbasses, smart as hell, and my favorite, we should have thought of that, all used in conjunction with me. Since most classic rock fans are cool, well, at least probably not narcs, I felt safe enough to light one up. More muffled voices. Then, from somewhere down the line, I heard, 5-0 starts walking around 8. I yelled, thanks, want to hit this? A minute later, a cute little blonde girl came walking up slowly, as if looking for something. I said, want to hit this? Assuming she was the one. She smiled a smile the likes of which songs were written about, took it and hit it like a pro. The girl had a set of lungs on her, and it showed. She exhaled a small cumulus cloud complete with thunder and lightning. I'm kidding, of course, but wouldn't that be awesome? She just smiled that lovely smile as she blew it out. I let her finish the joint with me. I rarely offered line people my weed. She was cute and I was bored. We chatted about weed, cars, and bands. She was quite a bit younger than I was at the time, but we seemed to relate well with each other. Then again, I've always tried to treat people as ageless. When the joint was burned down to the stats, she smiled, turned, and moseyed back to her place in line. Around 6:30 a.m., the dumb/smartass from earlier in the week walked in the door. I thought, oh, I hope this bitch isn't running the machine. True to his word, the manager opened the door at 7 a.m. He gave us a little speech explaining how things would work, then led us in to line up going up the steps right around the corner from the ticket desk. He came back a couple of times to check on the line, once to warn us we were getting too loud. Being first in line gave me the advantage of peeking around the corner to see the desk. When the smart/dumbass went behind the counter, my heart felt. There go our chances for good seats, I thought, and for no legitimate reason, but was surprised when she grabbed something from behind the counter and told the manager she was just there to get something she had forgotten. At 9:30 a.m., he came back out with a pad and pen. He started taking orders right on down the line, up the steps. After about 10 minutes, he walked back to the desk and disappeared behind it. At 9:45, I heard the ticket machine come to life. They were getting it ready. I peeked around the corner, and sure enough, the other girl was gone, and a cute little redhead was running the machine. Yeah. At 10 a.m. on the nose, the thing went crazy. The girl's fingers who was running the thing were going a mile a minute. The manager was standing next to her, shoving them in Ticketmaster envelopes and writing names on them as fast as he could. He was barely keeping up with the machine. He passed them to the kid at the register who called us up by name and checked us out. Then, all of a sudden, they grabbed one last set of tickets, wrote a name on it, and went back out to the line. He brought forth the first people to actually ask for their tickets for themselves. By that time, the rest of us was on our way. As we were leaving, the smile girl caught my arm and asked, what seats did you get? I showed her and said at the same time, with a shit-eating grin on my face, 6th row. She smiled and said, I'm going with you. I said, you're more than welcome to. Assuming I was joking, I most definitely was not. She smiled that sun-shaming smile again and was gone. Alas, never to be seen again. After that, I used the student center for most of my campouts. I remember different times getting different tickets there. Once, my doctor had me on these pain pills that had a tendency to make me forget things. I showed up at my usual time. It was a frigid, snowy northeast Ohio winter night. The temp was expected to reach below 0 digits. By this time in life, others had started showing up the night before. I was still telling people who would ask that I was getting there in the middle of the night. I didn't need any competition for first place. No one was there. An hour or so later, the first others showed up, a young couple. As they were setting up their blankets, I was taking my evening meds. I stood and zipped up my full-length quilted blue jean jacket that on any other night, even in the winter, would have sufficed, crawled into my super heavy-duty sleeping bag, and settled in for the long, cold night. About 10 minutes later, I was about to take my pain meds. As I was about to put them in my mouth, the young lady next to me said, "Excuse me, sir, but you just took those 10 minutes ago." I thanked her and explained, "I took 3 pills then, and now I'm taking my 4th one since I had my dinner." She said very confidently, "No, I watched you take 4 pills." She explained that she was a nurse's aide at a retirement home and watched people take meds for a living. I thought it was strange, but counted my pain pills. Luckily, they were almost gone, and I knew how many should be there. She was indeed correct. I thanked her and asked if she could keep an eye out for when I took my meds for the rest of the night. She said she would be happy to do it, and she did. She even reminded me when I woke up in the morning to take my pills. She must have assumed I had morning meds. Another time they had the coolest display in the courtyard. It was the Any Car. The Any Car was a series of concept cars, 1, 2, and 3, built for Hanover Trust to advertise their fall auto loan program. It was made up of parts from 20 different cars. I won't list them. You can look them up. I'd seen its predecessor years before at a couple of car shows and openings. I was excited to be able to check it out closely. I almost forgot to mention my spot. The first time I camped out at the student center in the winter, I found my spot. It was around the corner, hidden from spying eyes by about a 6-foot tall wall and bushes. It was a metal utility box of some kind, but next to it was a grate, about 5 foot square. It blew lukewarm air out constantly. In the summer, you wouldn't even notice it, but on a cold winter sub-30s night, it was like manna from heaven. That quickly became my hideout for smoking alone or just to warm up. I only told a few people about it, my best friend, of course, and a few random chicks I had invited into my lair to get high. Once, on that coldest sub-zero night I told you about, I got busted burning one by security. I must have lost track of time because it was before security's quitting time. I usually waited until after then. I was sitting there on the grate on a piece of cardboard I had brought just for this reason. I had no idea if the grate would be covered with snow or not. I had just blazed up when I heard the bushes shake. I expected to see my best friend there to surprise me with some antifreeze, liquor. But lo and behold, it was security dude. When I saw who it was, I tried to hide my pipe. He laughed and said, "I don't give a shit about that. I'm just here to warm up on my rounds." So I offered him a hit. He said no, of course. We chatted a while I finished my bowl, then we parted ways, never to meet again. The Who was one of the last concerts I camped out for. By then, the wristband thing was a thing of the past. I spent a warm, balmy night behind the mall where it all started. Full circle, so to speak. Right next to me were these 2 teeny boppers, as I referred to them. Cute young 20-somethings who seemed out of place. I wasn't the only one to ask them if they were getting tickets for their parents, just the first. The next morning I chuckled to myself remembering some of the goofy shit people had said to them. "Are they for your parents? Are they for your grandparents? Are they for your sugar daddy? Are you getting paid to sit here? Do your parents know you're sitting out here with a bunch of freaks? Does anyone know where you are right now?" I took note of that guy. You just never know. One was a short blonde, the other a brunette of average height. Both looked pretty healthy. They were both in short shorts and halters, which caught the interest of more than a couple of line mates, guys and girls. Not to sound too creepy here, but both had nice shapely bodies. You notice these things when you're bored. One was shapier in the chest and the other in the hindquarters. Well, enough said about that. The point is, they were young, good-looking girls who seemed out of place. I did carry on a surprisingly pleasant conversation with the ditzier-seeming one. She turned out to be quite the sci-fi fantasy fan, as am I. We had read a few of the same authors. She was one of the few people I've ever encountered who read my favorite series of books, The Dragon Riders of Pern. At least 3 of them at that point, she had told me. And she could actually carry on an informed conversation about them with me. Pretty good considering I had read the whole series of books twice by then, and twice more since then. Not to brag. The next morning, when my wife showed up, she asked, as she always did, if anyone needed anything from McDonald's. One of the girls asked her friend if they had enough to split a sandwich and coffee. The reply was one or the other. My wife took their coffee order and departed. When she returned, she handed the girls 2 coffees, at which time they said they'd only given her enough for one. They about fell all over themselves thanking her when she handed them each an Egg McMuffin. They promised to pay me back on the night of the show. Maybe they were getting them for themselves. Either way, I doubted I'd ever see them again. I couldn't have been more wrong. About 5 minutes after I got to my seats, 10th row center stage, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to see the teeny boppers standing there with big old smiles on their face. You would have thought I was their long-lost grandpappy. The taller one was holding out her hand with a 10 and a 5 in it. I tried to refuse, but they both insisted I take it. So I did. I used it to buy some chaser for the liquor I brought. 100 proof Fireball, 16 ounces hidden in my binoculars. They're fake binoculars that hold 6 ounces in each side. The eyepieces screw off for access. Then they disappeared into the crowd, never to be seen again. I wish, but that's part of another story. Friends and family. I had friends accompany me often. Most times it was just for emotional support. I was the only one actually buying tickets and to party. Yeah, I had friends who only hung out with me for my weed. I didn't always have a lot, but I most always had some. All of my friends suspected as much. My close friends knew for sure, or just because whenever we were together I would blaze up. It was funny how many times I had just smoked my last joint with somebody just to get someone else to quit asking. Well, everyone knew that ticket campouts were party time. I mean, what do you expect? It was usually on Friday night, which is payday and the week's biggest party night, but only certain people were aware of my exploits, and that was intentional. One of my friends, more like my first ever frenemy, we were rivals from way back. He was a short but athletic kid. I was tall and skinny, and the only one who could beat him in a foot race. But not always. I had breathing issues even then. I was short-winded, as the doctor had told my mom and dad. I could only run for shorter periods of time than most kids, but for that short period of time, I could beat him. Any longer than a half a block, and I petered out. He brought someone with him uninvited, and of all people it was the neighborhood moocher. His favorite greeting was, "Do you want to smoke a joint?" And when he said yes, I mean who wouldn't, he said, "Do you have one?" Well, as usual, he caused nothing but trouble. When it became obvious that I wasn't going to smoke him up, he started going down the line, chatting people up. I'm sure he was trying to mooch off of strangers. Oh, some pointed and laughed when he walked away. Later that night, while I was sleeping, the cops showed up and asked him to leave. I heard he was flirting with an underage girl. He was in his mid-20s. We suspect that some mother in line may have called on him. I have no idea. I was asleep. Although later in life I heard that the idiot thought I had something to do with it, I was asleep. Nothing happened to him. From what I was told, the cops just escorted him off the mall property and told him not to return until tomorrow after the line was gone. Now, most times friends were welcome. You know, someone to shoot the shit with if your line mates were tight-lipped and or boring. Now, my best friend was most often there with me. Sometimes I would go straight to the Ticketmaster from work, having already packed my non-perishables in the car. He would meet me and hold my place in line while I went to get dinner and any adult liquid refreshments I might have wanted. We spent many a night huddled in our sleeping bags or sweating all night. It didn't matter if one of us was sick or tired. If it was a good concert, we were in line. And 9 out of 10 times, if we were in line, I was first. There were even a couple of times when I got to Ticketmaster and my friend was sitting on his car waiting for me to show up. Once he even secured my place in line, or I would have been fourth. A van had pulled up while he was waiting. As soon as they parked, my friend had walked up and sat by the door securing first place for me. Good thing, because 6 people got out of the van and 4 were buying tickets that day. After a couple of years of it, others had caught on. More and more frequently, other people started coming the evening before. At one point, I called in sick on Friday just to make sure I was first. Rarely did I spend more than an hour or so alone before someone would show up, either one of my friends or another concert fan. I had as many as 6 friends show up one night. We partied our asses off. By midnight, all were gone except my best friend, and he was asleep, just snoring away. Once I got married, my wife tried to put the kibosh on the campouts. Until that is the first time she got to sit in the 4th row at a concert, then it was on. Not only did she expect me to camp out, but she also would come in the morning and take breakfast orders for me and any of my compatriots, sometimes even strangers, usually the young girls. She felt sorry for them. When she left, people would tell me how lucky I was to have her. If only they knew. Eventually, I stopped camping out for tickets. Oh, I didn't stop buying tickets. I just found other channels for purchasing them. Not always successful ones either. I worked with a guy. He was one of those people who are always bragging and can never back up what he claimed. Long blonde hair, real hot if I was to believe the girl in the office. When Pink Floyd tickets went on sale again, I had to get tickets. Now, I'd seen them twice, but my wife had never had the pleasure. This guy told me he had a connection at the Belkin Club. It was a club where you paid a shit ton of money to join, but you were guaranteed tickets in the first 20 rows. and so many times a year I think you could get within the first 10 rows. He said he would get 2 seats from his guy. After 3 weeks of me pressuring him, he finally gave me my tickets with some lame excuse that they were box seats because the guy put his request in too late for the usual seats. I thought it was bullshit at the time. Of course, I was right. The seats sucked. The weather was god-awful, and because of the shitty seats, my wife and I were sitting in the rain, at times almost a torrential downpour. I was so pissed I couldn't even enjoy the show. All I kept thinking was wait until I get my hands on that little asshole who sold me the tickets. And he upcharged me, claiming the guy charged him extra. The day after the show, I went to work getting to the bottom of this shit. I started calling every number I could find for Belkin. I started with the number in very small print on the back of the ticket. A couple of hours and numerous phone calls later, I lucked out and got a ditzy sounding woman. She was the secretary for the regional Belkin Club management team. I used all my charm and my deepest slow voice, you know what I mean, and talked her into giving me the phone number of the head office of Belkin. I hung up with her and started dialing. When a gentleman answered, I was thrown off a little. Not that common unless it was their private number. Yes, the dits gave me the president of Belkin's private office number. It had to be a mistake. It had to be fate. After explaining my situation to him, I bought Belkin Club tickets from one of his members for an outrageous price, and then they turned out to be lousy seats. After asking him a dozen questions, I was surprised he put up with me as long as he did, and him telling me that he couldn't look up the number on the tickets and tell me who or where or when they were bought for privacy reasons, I hit on pay dirt. Can you at least tell me if they were indeed Belkin Club tickets? He asked for the number and then said curtly, no, these were not in the block of tickets that we sold to Belkin Club members. I put that number in my Rolodex, never to be used again, but if I needed it, I had it. Now I was seeing red. That was Friday, and on Monday I was just waiting for the little shit to come in. He only worked Monday, Wednesday, and Friday cleaning the shop. When he didn't show up, I thought it was funny. Then again on Wednesday, and again on Friday. That night before the boss left, I asked if the guy was on vacation. He told me the guy was a no-call, no-show 3 days in a row. He said the guy was terminated. Just my luck. The idiot quit on the day I was going to confront him. Luckily, a couple of months later, as I was driving to work, I saw his car at a gas station. I whipped in and waited for him to come out of the store. He didn't see me because I was hidden around the corner of the building. Once he started pumping his gas, I walked up on him. I spun him around. You should have seen the look on his face when he saw who it was. Sheer panic. Now anyone who knows me knows I'm a pacifist, so the guy wasn't in any danger, but he didn't know me well, having only worked with me for a couple of months. Oh, I inconspicuously grabbed him by the shirt and put him up against the pump. He tried to push past me to no avail. I pushed him harder into the pump and said, hey asshole, those weren't Belkin seats you sold me. He tried to make an excuse, but I shut him down. I told him, you're damn lucky I found you in a public spot. If I ever catch you in private, I'll thrash you within an inch of your life. Huh, sound familiar? He reached into his pocket and handed me something. After he left, I looked. It was 220s. I hadn't really thought my threat was that severe, but hey, I'll take some money back over getting none of it back any day. After that, I found other connections. I tried buying tickets online. It worked, but it was hit or miss on even getting through, let alone getting good seats. I tried calling the Ticketmaster ticket line. It worked, but again, hit or miss on connecting or good seats. Then, me being me, I had an idea. The ticket line opened way before the 10 o'clock sales time. So the next time I wanted tickets, I called in 5 minutes early. I asked when my tickets went on sale and was told in about 4 minutes. I said, good, I'll wait here online until they do. She told me if you're calling in for those tickets, I'll have to hang up when they go on sale. I hung up and called back at the appropriate time, but the way she said it, if you're calling in for those tickets, I'll have to hang up when they go on sale, gave me another idea. The next time I wanted tickets, I called in 5 minutes early again. I told the lady that I wanted to surprise my wife for her birthday. I said she loved classic rock, and then asked what rock shows she had on sale right now. She listed a few off. I said, none of those sound good. Do you have anything else going on sale soon? Anything? I tried to sound desperate. She said, well, Leonard Skinner tickets are going on sale in about a minute. I said, oh my God, she loves them. I said, I'll have to try and call back. She said, wait a minute. And how many tickets do you need? I told her 4. She said, hold please. A couple of minutes later, she said, okay, you're all set. 4 tickets in section 14. I thanked her even as I thought, oh, that sucks, section 14. I hung up and looked up at the seating chart for the venue, and to my surprise, section 14 was the first section in front of the stage. We had 4th row to Leonard Skinner. I used that same roof several more times over the next few years. Then all of a sudden, not all the big concerts were coming to Cleveland every time. There were enough decent shows, but the really big ones started skipping over us. My theory is over the years of all the biggest acts playing Cleveland, the fans got complacent with their concert going. How many times do you need to see Skynyrd? Well, 6 was enough for me. Ticket sales dropped, so the acts started getting booked in other cities. Then country music took off as the more popular genre for concerts. The newer bands, they have to have shows too. The venues can only book so many acts in a concert season. I'm just saying. It's been a few years since I bought tickets to a concert. I wouldn't know where to get them. Don't worry your little heads though. I'd figure it out too sweet. I'm not saying my concert days are over, but it would take a hell of a good show to get this old hippie dude to camp out for tickets again. You notice I didn't say it would never happen? Well, folks, that's all for this week. I'm Boris Blade, and as always, I'm strange but harmless.